A pro-Palestine rally has been organised for Saturday, November the 11th in central London. Estimates suggest that tens of thousands of people will assemble. And the timing, of course, is not accidental. November the 11th is Armistice Day. Some have suggested the march has been scheduled to ensure maximum publicity. Well, we're already talking about it, so if that's the case, job done. But many have interpreted the choice of date as a declaration of contempt for British values and history. Certainly, the pro-Palestine marches so far have been heavily populated by what we might call intersectional activists, those with pronouns in their bios, a tendency to treat disagreement as a form of violence, and a general disdain for Western civilization and all that it has accomplished. But these are strange bedfellows in many ways, as one activist who attempted to raise the Progress Pride flag soon discovered. In this footage, you can see that some other protesters took offence and tore the flag down. And why? Well, because same-sex activity is illegal in Gaza, and gay people there know better than to be out and proud. Indeed, we know that there is a real problem with homophobia within the Islamic community, even here in the UK. A poll for Channel 4 in 2016 found that a little over half of British Muslims believe that homosexuality ought to be against the law. Not merely that they disapproved of it, but that they wanted it criminalised. Activists at the time were quick to brush this off, claiming there was nothing to worry about, and they were thereby, of course, siding with the most reactionary and ultra-conservative elements of the Islamic community at the expense of gay Muslims. And this has always been the case. While unbelievably brave women in Iran are risking their lives, throwing off their veils and burning them in the street, some Western commentators are claiming that the hijab is empowering and even a feminist symbol. These are what we call luxury beliefs. And this weekend, another left-wing activist found himself colliding with the brick wall of reality as he tried to explain to his pro-Palestine allies that kids could be trans.
This guy is trying to propagate anti-LGBTQ propaganda. He's trying to tell children that they are not allowed to be trans.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're not. Man, bro. No. Black nail polish on is a man, bro. Stop talking. Stop talking. There is some religions you can't do that. Yeah, you have to respect that decision. But in religions, yeah.
An awkward situation, I'm sure you'll agree. But then this ideology that has infected so many on the left doesn't have space for nuance or complexities. These activists are reading from a script, not thinking for themselves, and they are baffled when the minorities they support express prejudices of their own. And so we can expect to see many of these pro-LGBTQIA plus identity-obsessed Britain-bashing activists turning up at the protest on November the 11th, not because they have a secure understanding of the war in the Middle East, but because it's what they're expected to do. They'll be chanting the usual slogans, like the people in this video on the London Tube just yesterday.
Palestine will be free.
There is only one solution.
Intifada revolution.
Intifada. Can it be the case that they don't understand the implications of these phrases? The term intifada is most commonly associated with the suicide bombings and other terrorist attacks committed in Israel in the 1990s and early 2000s, and yet activists are now pretending these connotations don't exist, just as they are pretending that from the river to the sea is a harmless phrase calling for equal rights. Well, here's a protester holding a banner with the phrase "from the river to the sea," accompanied by an image that celebrates the terrorist atrocities of Hamas on October the 7th. So why does no one at that protest complain? Why does no one tell him to take it down? Why is it tolerated? Why, for that matter, aren't the protesters denouncing Hamas publicly, given that this is the terrorist group that boasts about using innocent Palestinians as human shields? One person held up a placard pointing out that Hamas are terrorists and was attacked by protesters and was pulled away by police.
Hamas terrorists رو یکی از مبارزین پادشاهی آزادی دادن.
So why did that happen? I mean, surely if the protesters are pro-Palestine, they would oppose Hamas, given that the group represents such a major threat to the people of Gaza. Of course, any decent person will be horrified by the deaths of innocent civilians in Gaza, and calls for a ceasefire make complete sense. But why aren't these protesters therefore calling on Hamas to release the hostages and thereby make a ceasefire possible? Which brings us on to the question of what we can do about the protest planned on November the 11th. Many are calling for the protest to be banned. Rishi Sunak has stopped short of a ban, but has called on the Met Police to make robust use of its powers to prevent the remembrance events being disrupted. And yet a people polling survey for GBNews has found that almost half of the population believe the march should not be allowed to go ahead. Others have been calling for deportations. But this isn't the solution. Liberal values are always hard to maintain in times of crisis. It's very easy to solve our problems through authoritarian means, to resort to censorship, to deport those citizens we disapprove of, or, yes, to ban protests. But by doing so, we effectively surrender our principles to the very people who do not value them at all. Why give them that much power? Some of the sentiments I've seen expressed by these protesters are genuinely disgusting and disturbing, and to see them declared on the streets of London Armistice Day is going to upset a lot of people. But that's the price we pay for living in a free society. We shouldn't be banning any protests, because we're better than that. Criticism, ridicule, counter-protest, these are the tools for tackling intolerance in a free society. Once we allow our commitment to liberal values to fall away, we lay the groundwork for future tyranny. And that's a mistake we may very well live to regret.